We have just entered onto the platform, which is considered in Muslim tradition Al-Aqsa, the entire platform, not just the mosque that I'm pointing out here. This is the mosque that is called Al-Aqsa. It's mentioned once in the Quran and it means the outermost. It's believed from this place where the Golden Dome is that Muhammad went up on his night journey. Around us, you can hear the church bells ringing. It's Sunday. Just below us, you saw where the Jews are praying at the Western Wall. So you might say that this is the meeting point of all these religions, the Christian, the Jewish, and the Muslim religion. But I call this the finish line. This is the finishing line of the kingdom that will come here, the throne room that will be established here on the Temple Mount in the future. Behind us we see the capitals that are left over from the Crusader period. Look at how beautiful they are. They were famous for this deep engraved basket weave. And the Crusaders were here for a very short time, just over 80 years. And here the Knights of the Templars was established, right? And they became the great bankers of Europe, if you know the history behind that. The Pope gave them the right to collect the money from the pilgrims. And this was where they established their headquarters. The Dome of the Rock was their church at that time, for that short period of time. Let's keep going. Okay, not being Muslims, you cannot enter into the mosque. Of course, the mosque has the features of all mosques. It has the niche that will tell you which direction is Mecca. In this situation, it's south. In Islam, you pray only to the south, only to Mecca, because Mecca is the center of their religion. And what is in Mecca but a small 20-centimeter piece of meteorite that is surrounded by a huge box? Once in their life, they go around this, hopefully 7 times. I wonder where they got that. And there's many borrowed traditions. You will notice that to go into a mosque, you have to take your shoes off. Where did they get that? So there's traditions in Islam that we can understand from the Bible, and then of course there's other traditions as well. Al-Aqsa Mosque is lined up with the Dome of the Rock. The Dome of the Rock was the first building that was built here, and the first of the domes over this rock, or the first of the buildings, was built in the late 7th century, in the year 691. And that is real gold on a roof. It was put there by King Hussein, the late King Hussein of Jordan. He evidently sold all his property abroad, especially in Britain, and he plated that dome with a 3-millimeter plate of 14-karat gold. But one thing I want to talk to you about is, remember we talked about where our treasure is, there our heart will be, right? We have treasures in heaven. Remember, Jesus told us to put our treasures in heaven. Now here is an earthly treasure. What is King Hussein of Jordan saying when he takes all his private possessions, melts them down, and makes a gold roof and puts it here on the Temple Mount? Right? What is he saying? This is where he's putting his deposit, his treasure. All right? As a Muslim leader, he's basically saying, I claim it. It's mine. And that's very interesting. Remember, King Hussein ruled this part of Israel for 19 years, between 1948 and 1967. In 1967, Israel begged Jordan, do not enter the fight. Don't enter this war. We want to live in peace. We don't want anything you've got. Leave us alone. But King Hussein listened to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians lied to him, and he entered into the battle. That is how he lost really occupation of this part of the world, because he never legally was ruling it. He was actually just holding it. Remember, the nations of the world never recognized his authority here. It was a result of the end of the war in 1948. So in 1967, this comes back into our hands through a miraculous event. There's no other way to explain this war. And for one day, the flag of Israel, the Star of David, flew on the Temple Mount But in fear that that would start another war, which it probably would have, Moshe Dayan at that time capitulated and returned this place to the Waqf, W-A-K-F. This is the religious Muslim rulership, and the religious Muslims rule this part of Israel, and it's an autonomous region. Autonomous, in other words, they're independent. Israel is the protection over them, completely over them. Israel must protect them. That's why they vetted us so thoroughly as we came up onto the Temple Mount. That's why they're so concerned that no one disturbs what they have here. But it's under this auspices of this protection that Israel allows them total autonomy here. And we'll prove that to you as we go along. All right, well, we're standing on the side of Al-Aqsa Mosque. Al-Aqsa Mosque actually, as a result of earthquakes, collapsed in different areas. It once was much larger than it is today. The original Al-Aqsa Mosque was built 20 years after the original Dome of the Rock, and it was built by El-Walid in the beginning of the 8th century. So it's a very old building. Of course, it's been embellished and refurbished and changed, and you can see remnants of the Crusader world here again, these magnificent capitals. But what I want you to notice here is this. Does this look very old to you? What about over there? Does that look ancient to you, those skylights? Now, isn't that sort of strange that you would come up here and see something absolutely new? This is new. This is not even 3 years old. And remember, I said to you, I'm going to prove to you that this is an autonomous region. Underneath this area and extending deeper into where those steps are is a region of the Temple Mount that was artificially built and extended by Herod the Great in the year 20 BC, approximately. And what he did is he built it up on arches and fills, 7 different stories of it, to extend to make this huge Temple Mount platform. However, because the Waqf is in complete control, and of course that's Second Temple artifacts, Israel allowed, under their auspices, although they weren't happy about it, but because this is autonomous, Israel did not stop them from excavating the entire area. Underneath where we are standing is the largest mosque in the Middle East. All right? About 15,000 people can go and worship in the direction of Mecca, towards the Kaaba stone, underneath our feet. Now, why is this important when you think about it? First of all, structurally, it's a nightmare, because this platform depended on the infrastructure that had been put on inside it to hold it up. It's all gone. That's a very dangerous place for the platform itself. People say that if there's a earthquake, even a moderate earthquake, something terrible could happen underneath without this support. The other thing is, on holidays when we have rain and snow, the limestone, of course, absorbs this wet. And when people come up here, imagine 100,000 people up here, the weight of that could actually take it down as well. So, why did we allow them to do this? Because they're autonomous. Even though they ruined and destroyed artifacts back to the First Temple period, and we found some of those artifacts thrown away in the Judean desert, Israel has never stopped the Muslims from building and producing what they want here on the Temple Mount. People say to me, how can Israel allow this? It's pretty easy to sum it up. It's summed up in one simple sentence: fear of man instead of the holy fear of God. If you're more afraid of man and what men will do to you, and of course Israel is in a fragile environment, you might say Israel is living in a rough neighborhood. We are surrounded by 260 million Muslims who don't want us here. That's a pretty rough neighborhood. And so, because of the pressure of our environment and because of also our blindness, we have made a deal with the Muslim world that this is theirs, even though it's only the 3rd holiest place for them. And even that is actually unrealistic. It's not historically sound to think that this was the place that Muhammad went up to heaven And of course, do you think he really did? But be that as it may, there is only one place that is the holiest place for Jews on the face of the earth, and that is this place. We've surrendered it as a result of that fear of man. But don't worry, God is going to straighten it all out.